Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sharing Insights podcast, where I've been exploring permaculture homesteads and community in Costa Rica. My name is Jason Bliss, and the mystery just keeps on unfolding. This is volume 2 of my season 1 recap series. It was a little unexpected. I hope that you like the format because we have several more to go. It wasn't my original intention, but I've heard it said that the best way to learn is to teach, so here we are. In this episode, we're going to review some of the advice that we've picked up around hosting guests, volunteers, and students. I addressed some of the financial aspects of hosting guests in the last episode. Hosting's a big topic for a lot of ecologically focused land projects. Welcoming in volunteers can be an exciting way to get some much-needed help around building infrastructure, and really for many new landowners, it also fulfills a desire for social connection and a sense of community. When it's done well, hosting guests as volunteers, apprentices, students, tourists, farm stay guests, or even curious neighbors can bring an enriching element of cultural interaction, personal growth, and prosperity into a project. When it's done well. Susanna Leff from Finca Amrita has been hosting guests as volunteers for over 30 years. She was reluctant to do so at first, but opened up to it in her experimentation. And Susanna has one of those personalities that's come to love the interactions that her programs brought her. She gets to stay home, tending to her gardens, and the world comes to her. She helps people explore and harness their passions, and that practice has helped her meet her own needs and live a long, happy life by the riverside. She gets to share what she's learned with others while continuing to learn from them in return. Susanna's suggestion is to integrate guests into as many aspects of farm life as is comfortable for you. It enriches the guests' experiences if done well, and it can save you more work than you put into it. Finca Amrita hosts guests for a reasonably low rate. It includes a room to stay in, access to the beautiful riverside property, ample food provisions for them to prepare themselves in the community kitchen, and her guidance. Her guests help out around the homestead 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and Susanna is out right there alongside of them. She mentioned that the most authentic teaching happens when they're working together. Being in the present moment is a very satisfying experience, and it gives her the chance to check in with her volunteers regularly. Passing conversations can help her keep spirits strong while minimizing buildups of tension, misunderstanding, or even stress. Identifying unhappy volunteers and exploring what their passions are can uncover unimagined benefits and value. Susanna believes in redirecting volunteers toward tasks that maximize their skills and passion. She even encourages people to sing while they're working. It cultivates that passion and that community that is so intrinsic to the experience for many people. In her interview and her farm tour video that we did with her, she tells a story of transforming a person's experience from resistance, aka suffering, into joy and a lasting expression of beauty. Someone who was hating his experience ended up hating a beautiful mural on the kitchen's wall. My friend, that's impact. And she gets to tell that story to guests for years to come who marvel at this amazing painting and ask, where did this come from? And she gets to tell them. And then they get to realize, like, oh, I can think outside of the box. Do I have some other passion that I can contribute to the project? I asked her what her secret is for getting good volunteer administrators to help her manage some of the program's responsibilities. First, she says that we need to train ourselves to get better at teaching others. I'm going to say that again. We need to train ourselves to get better at teaching other people. That's the secret. If we want to succeed at leveraging our time so that we have more time to do what we want most to be doing with our time, we need to take the time to train ourselves to become better at teaching others to do that which needs to be done. It's a system design principle worth investing into. This is not a quick tip. This is a life path choice. It's one that's given Susanna the freedom to live the life that she wants to live while making an impact on the world around her. This principle applies to anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur of any kind. Take the time to learn and practice communication and project management skills early. It'll be worth the effort. Trust me. Susanna's gotten most of her best administrators by offering the opportunity to paying volunteers who've been showing the needed qualities. When people contact her asking for a full work trade opportunity, and she suspects that they might be a good fit for the position, she invites them to come for 1 month as a paying volunteer. And if they fit the role, then they can take the full work trade for the months that follow. One resource that Susanna's shared, worth re-mentioning for anyone interested in this part of the world, is volunteerlatinamerica.com. It's one of several useful sites for landowners to find volunteers and for volunteers to find host sites. Other sites I've found useful are newmundo.com, workaway.info, woof.com, and helpx.com. I'll put the links in the show notes. Susanna mentioned something briefly that I want to address. She said that despite the more common message, people often survive snake bites. She said this about her encounter with the well-known terciopelo. It's a pit viper common to Costa Rica. She was bitten and survived. My point of mentioning this is not to discount the fact that many people die from snake bites, especially from terciopelos. My point is in reference to points of reference and patterns of belief. Follow me here. One of the reasons that this topic excites me so much is my background as a traveler who visited many different places as a volunteer. I learned a lot over those years, but what was most valuable is what I unlearned. Still today, unlearning things continues to be one of my favorite undertakings. It's challenging, and it requires working with subtle aspects of the mind, but the rewards are empowering. One of my favorite things to witness in any of my farm's guests' experiences is when they find themselves having transcended a taboo. For most of us, our childhoods are filled with the programming meant to keep us behaving suitably. And generally it's for the comfort level of those around us. It's actually a pretty useful skill to teach our children. It helps us navigate the world with minimum friction. I do believe, however, that it's also important to teach them how to let go of the rule once they've learned it. Look, it's a tricky thing to do, especially while feeling like we're giving proper guidance for our own sake, let alone theirs. But we need to trust in the deeper essence of the truth, which I'm coming to find has far fewer absolutes than we like to believe. Teaching others how to understand the difference between absolute concepts and contemplation is critical to growing healthy human beings who can stand freer of the entrapments of social programming than the belief of taboos allows for. The practice can be equally freeing to ourselves from our own rules as a practice of self-examination and growth. Observe before interacting, interact, observe again, interact. Honestly, I'm not sure how far I want to go with this, but I just wanted to put it out there that dangerous things are worth recognizing as dangerous things, for sure. Likewise, treating dangerous situations appropriately is definitely a skill worth learning. However, we don't need to use the potential for danger as a lever to believe that badness is sure to come from any one thing's existence. Sometimes dangerous things exist, and it's okay. We live in a relative universe. Navigating the mystery skillfully includes moving forward with a sense of openness as well as awareness. Poisonous snakes, scorpions, spiders, rabid bats, bacteria, viruses, scary human beings, they all exist. Welcome to planet Earth. It's important to be able to identify and avoid such potential harms, or approach with caution. Places where these things are likely to be are likewise important to know about and prompt us to proceed with caution. Allowing fear of them to keep us from having life-enriching experiences, on the other hand, is a tendency worth challenging. Many times, the best way to meet that challenge is head-on. Look, even if it bites you, you just might go on to be a happy, healthy human being. Who knows? You might even go on to tell a story one day describing how you're better off for it. The moral of the story, stay open, stay aware, and enjoy the experience. While hosting volunteers is a primary focus of Susanna's interview, most of my other guests also host people in one way or another as part of their program. Ali Khan and Alnur Lada of Brave Earth creatively responded to change and went from a no-volunteer program decision toward making exceptions when ramping up and preparing for a retreat. Otherwise, they did end up harnessing some guest labor for the builds of their aircrete domes during a series of workshops. Check it, really let this sink in. The guests were paying to learn the process, and they were happy to be part of the process. These guys didn't even know how to make one. They just called Dome Gaia to come by and teach the workshop for them. All they needed to take care of was the hosting and marketing. Justin Dolan of St. Michael's Permaculture Country Club and Megan Casey of Chillamate Rainforest Eco Retreat both shared similar insights around looking for organizations that work with student groups. Organizations that might be looking for new places to host their programs. Megan mentioned one place she'd had success with called the World Leadership School. I'll also have a link in the show notes for you on that one. Personally, I'd suggest reaching out to and making a proposal to any local university's ecologically focused departments or programs, even internationally. A campaign like that can not only bring students, money, and exposure into your project, but networking with these organizations can develop into long-term perennial relationships that can benefit your project for years to come. Reach out. See who's out there. See who's looking for a place. They're there. Like Ansel Mitchell of Telemanca Chocolate, both Justin and Megan mentioned the benefits of putting together long-term apprenticeship or internship programs. The experience tends to be more meaningful to the project and for the students, and they offer opportunities for deep learning that goes beyond what generally might be taught during a 1 or 2 week event like a permaculture design course. Nico Bodefer from Essence R&L shared a lot of great advice about hosting guests. When he first got started, he saved some money in a way that added value to his guests' stay ever since. He bought some old canvas tents from the Salvation Army and hung them over bamboo frames to make his first glamping accommodations. By purchasing several of them and having them shipped over, he saved a bunch of money while recycling what was otherwise being discarded by the military. Nico believes that giving your guests a quality experience is the single best investment you can make in marketing. He builds relationships with his staffs in a way that makes them feel part of a team. And as a result, the staff has a way of welcoming guests in a way that makes them feel like they're being welcomed into somebody's home. Another touch that made an impact on me was the way that he hung an image of his farm. It's this big drone image that he took, and it's hung in the hallway of the reception area where you can look at it and you can see all of the different points of interest, the cabins, the trails, the food forests, everything around the property. And, it enhances the guest's experience while reducing the staff's need to give repetitive directions regarding trails and these other points of interest. One of Nico's most profound adaptations, in my opinion, came in his early days when he wanted to serve good quality food in an area where it was locally hard to find and was expensive when he could find it. He solved the problem by taking a permaculture design course and growing his present-day food forests and greenhouse. The video that we took of Nico's food forests is definitely worth checking out. Lynx Gimon of Sail Cargo Inc. is no longer hosting guests, volunteers, or students. The volunteer-run education program that they were teaching to people in the Pueblo got shut down with the onset of the pandemic. But that just led them to pivot and find funding to pay those that they were able to keep on board and stay with the project. He ended up with a more dedicated crew as a result. Lynx shares his perspective that healthy and happy people are high-quality assets. Take time to check in with guests, volunteers, and team members and make sure they have a chance to be heard, if not helped. Like Susanna, he suggested that we ask people what they want to do and offer some diversity into their service. Gaining a point of reference for rural living is a life-enriching opportunity worth giving to oneself, let alone a valuable one to offer to others. Staying at places like this as a guest, retreatant, student, or volunteer brings values to people's lives. Many people who visited places like this as a workshop, student, apprentice, or volunteers, they've gone on to develop marketable skills that have changed the direction of their lives. Again, as we discussed in the last episode on financial sustainability, it's essential for the longevity of our projects to recognize this value and charge accordingly. If hosting guests in any form interests you, make a list of unique experiences that your guests might find. Add it to your welcome guide to help them see the place with your expanded point of reference. Do it with a beginner's mind. When designing your welcome guide, include things like links to video tours of the property showing trailheads and harvestable food, a photo gallery of the animals and birds and insects and flowers that they might find around the place. Consider putting out a guest book where they can read and add to a collection of meaningful testimonials and reviews from visitors that have come before them. If we really want to improve our guests' experience, though, perhaps the most important thing really is to work on our communication and other interpersonal skills. We can have a lot to offer, but if our approach isn't considering our guests' experience first, we'll lose out in the end. If you're listening to this episode as a traveler who likes visiting unique projects like those that are highlighted in the podcast, remember that you get out of it what you put into it. Life isn't a spectator sport. Dive in and participate. And do what you can to identify your fears and resistance and see if there's anything that you can do to unbelieve the part that has you distressed. That's what I got for you this week. Make sure to tune into the next installment where I'll review what we've learned about developing healthy communities, both within an intentional community as well as in our interactions with our regional neighbors. Till then, stay open.